Pokemon Pocket is going to be changing the meta and adding in a ton of new cards with every season and new set. It's been confirmed that there's going to be 4 new sets every year and 4 mini sets, which means that 8 times a year there's going to be big changes to the meta. In this video, I'm going to be going over some cards, like Rare Candy, that have a big chance of being added to the game and could be amazing and meta changing. I mean, this stuff could be huge for the game, could switch it up, could change everything entirely. And I'm going to be playing some Pokemon while talking about it, so enjoy. So to start out, Rare Candy. Choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a stage 2 card in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, put that card onto the basic Pokemon to evolve it. So essentially, that's letting you skip an evolution and skip the stage 1. In Pokemon Pocket, this could be really huge, just because of how many stage 2s right now get cooked by things like Pikachu and Articuno that are able to go in quickly and just kill them before they can get set up. Now, I do think it's a little too overpowered, especially with stuff like Venusaur or Charizard EX. All the stage 2 EXs are way too powerful for this. So I think something that they could edit to make it a little more fair, because remember in Pokemon Pocket they take cards and trainers that already exist and they do edit them to make them more fair, like Pokeball and Professor's Research, but they could make Rare Candy into choose one of your basic Pokemon in play if you have a stage 2 non-EX Pokemon that evolves from it. What this would do would make it so you can't evolve into Venusaur, but you could evolve into something like Venusaur non-EX. This would help Mewtwo a ton because you would be able to set up those Gardevoir so easily, but again, at this point, when there's new changes to the meta, then stage 2 non-EXs will become a way bigger threat thanks to Rare Candy. Rare Candy would open the door for so much. Let me know in the comments what you think and how that would change the game, and I know it would break the game right now in some ways by making Gardevoir insane, and if you're allowed to have EXs, it would make Charizard one of the best decks, Venusaur one of the best decks, but it could be insane. Another option is if you discard cards when you play it, which would get rid of some cards, or if you can only play it when you have one basic Pokemon on the bench or something like that, just things to nerf it down a little bit. So next up is Great Ball, and this is because I really think they're going to add it in. Right now, I don't think there's a single way to search for non-basic Pokemon in your deck, which means stuff like this is very likely to be added in. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may reveal a Pokemon you find there and put it into your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. Now, there's nothing that's looking at your deck yet in the game, but I'm sure it'll come soon, and this card really makes sense to Pokemon Pocket. Now, the thing that doesn't make sense about this card is the 7 cards of your deck, and that's due to actual Pokemon having 60 cards in a deck instead of 20, so I think lowering this to look at the top 4 or even 3 cards of your deck, you may reveal a Pokemon there you find there, shuffle hands into your deck, I think that might make it more fair and more sense. Another option is to keep it at 7 or maybe 5, but a higher amount, and say non-EX cards. So you can't just search for an EX that way. But this would definitely be an interesting addition, and I think there's going to be something like it. I definitely think so. Now is another Pokeball, the Ultra Ball. This card lets you discard 2 cards from your hand, and then search your deck for any Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So I actually think this is fair. This makes sense, and this will get added at some point. And the reason I think that is because it's super powerful to search for any Pokemon, but discarding 2 cards is big, and especially in Pokemon Pocket, where your starting hand only has 5 cards, compared to the TCG where your starting out is 7. Pokemon Pocket just runs on less cards, meaning discarding 2 cards from your hand is a challenge, is a struggle. You're going to be getting rid of, you know, important trainer, maybe an important supporter. You don't have as much garbage in decks to get rid of, making Ultra Ball a really interesting addition to the game, and really anything that's discarding energy like that would be so interesting. Okay, next up is Super Rod, and look, I don't know about Super Rod exactly, but something like it could make sense. And I have an idea for something. I couldn't find the exact Pokemon version, but I do have an idea for a card that would make sense. So Super Rod is shuffle any 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. Now, of course, there are no energy in Pokemon Pocket besides the energy points that don't go into your discard pile. So I would say Super Rod could just shuffle up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon back into your deck. The only issue is that in a game like Pocket, you are never going to have even a case to shuffle a Pokemon back into your deck, which is why I think that Super Rod could work as choose a card, shuffle it back into your deck from the discard pile. So it would let you choose any card, a supporter, an item, anything. And the reason is because that would make it useful in a lot of decks and make things very interesting. You would never know if someone's used up supporters or not. I think this one's the weakest, since its normal card, a Super Rod, really doesn't work, and it would be kind of broken, but in the future, it definitely could be. So next up is Super Scoop Up, and this is just because it's a kind of card that I think would fit in the game really well. I wouldn't be surprised if it was in the game right now if they had added it. It lets you flip a coin and if heads, put a Pokemon and all the cards attached to it into your hand. Now this goes well with Weezing decks, this goes well with, you know, picking up really low Pokemon. It might be a little too overpowered, but it's definitely an interesting card, and it kind of switches up the game, especially in a game like Pokemon Pocket, where you're just going to be getting rid of the energy. I would say to make this more fair, it would be flip a coin, if heads, put your active Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your hand. But again, there's no tool cards in the game, and there's no tool cards on this list either, because I don't think they're going to add tool cards to the game at all. And if you don't know, in actual Pokemon TCG non-Pocket, tool cards are cards you can attach to your Pokemon that buff up your Pokemon. They're item cards, and you attach them on like energy, and they give the Pokemon extra health or extra damage. But since there's nothing connected to your Pokemon in this game, just flipping a coin and putting the Pokemon and whatever evolutions it has into your hand, it would be very powerful, but it would definitely be a cool card to add in. The next one I think is big, and I think the reason it makes so much sense is because it would change the meta, but also help everyone pretty equally, which could be some crazy meta switch in the game. So what Switch does is switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench. It's very basic, it's very good, and it's very interesting. In a game like Pocket where you only have 3 benched Pokemon, this could be kind of fair. Now, I do think it's super powerful, and for a smaller change, I would say Switch could switch your active basic Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. What this would help you do is would help everyone get out of early game pickles where they have a terrible start and they're wasting energy, they're an energy behind. It makes a ton of sense to use Switch for a basic Pokemon. Okay, next up we have Cheryl. Heal all damage from each of your evolution Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from the Pokemon that were healed in this way. I think this is a very interesting supporter card and makes a lot of sense. We could nerf it a little more by making it heal all damage to your active evolution Pokemon if you do discard all energy. This would kind of strand it in the active position and will be very interesting. Now this is similar to Max Potion, which is heal all damage from one Pokemon if you do discard all energy that way, but what this would be a supporter like Cheryl. So I think they could add in Cheryl or another supporter card like that heals all the damage, but you discard all the energy. I think it could be interesting, and it would definitely be an addition to the game that would change things up. Alright, my final addition that could happen is something like a Master Ball. Now hear me out, hear me out. This item would be a new item to Pokemon Pocket. It would be a style of item that you can only have one of in your deck, and I know people already don't like the RNG based gameplay, so people might not like stuff like this where if you draw into it you'd have an advantage. But a Master Ball where you can just search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it into your hand. I mean, come on, this just makes sense to the game. Imagine pulling like a Master Ball and being so excited about getting an item. It's not that over advantage that it would break the game, but it is really good. Now, do I think it will happen? Probably not. I think this list isn't perfect, but it sums up some cards that we could see in the future of Pokemon Pocket. I think the most likely card to be added in is the Switch, just because of how basic it is, how interesting it is, and how it would just be in every deck. Of course, we have the X Speed, which is similar to Switch, and maybe a Pokemon Pocket alternative, but still, Switch could be interesting and really help those decks with high retreat cost. But guys, let me know what you think will be added in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this style of video. Make sure to subscribe,